All right, Arthur. I think we're here and we're live.
Hey everybody.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, doing pretty good today. Doing pretty good today. I think this will be a fun one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you can let me know if that's working, that would be appreciated.
I see it.
Excellent. Well, awesome. We've got a growing list of attendees already in the chat. If you guys have any issues, do drop a message in the chat and um, we can certainly address it. But I think everything looks good so far. But yeah, Arthur, excited to get started here. What's been keeping your attention the last week or so? You mentioned you were at a conference.
Yeah, I was at Track's annual user conference in Nashville this week, which was a great chance to meet current customers, talk to potential customers, and just get a sense of how large property managers are doing since most of their users are in like the 100, 200 plus unit property management category. So always nice to see what's happening in the industry.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I didn't make my way up there, but it's always good to get reports on the ground of what's happening. So yeah. Well, awesome. I know some folks are still filing in, but in the interest of making sure we get through as much material as possible, we'll go ahead and get started. So today's webinar is Inbox to Income: 8 Ways to Get More Bookings with Email Marketing. And I do appreciate Arthur for his time and hopping on with us today. I think probably not many people in this industry would know more than Arthur and have seen more email, being sent by vacational managers, hosts, individual property managers, whatever the case may be. And hopefully it's a good combination because we have also have a lot of customers that we're working with that are StayFi customers that have become clients of BuildUp Booking. So we've also seen a lot of implementation work on StayFi itself into these actual properties. And then, of course, we're actually working with these lists and actually sending to those databases on a regular basis on our team. Don, who leads a lot of those efforts on my side of things, has probably sent millions of emails, many of them collected through StayFi over the last year or so. So we've seen a thing or two. Hopefully, we can share that with folks, tuning in today, and we give them some additional information that they can use in their own business to get better results. So just by way of intros, very quickly, just some folks probably coming in, maybe came more from the StayFi side, and probably we haven't connected yet. So my name is Conrad O'Connell. I'm the founder of an agency called BuildUp Bookings. Last year, I wrote a book called Mastering Vacation Rental Marketing. We'll have some more on that a little bit later. That talks all about how to get more direct bookings through search, social, and email marketing. I've spent really the last 9 years working with vacation rental managers on their overall digital marketing approach in order to get more bookings, to get more direct bookings, to get more traffic. And in fact, if I sum it all up over the last year, all of our campaigns have driven over $50 million of just direct bookings. So, like I said, we've had the opportunity to work with some amazing clients, some of whom are on the call, and we've helped them drive a lot of revenue. And I think we've learned a lot along the way as far as what works, what doesn't. And email is always one of those things that is part of our standard approach. So, awesome. Well, Arthur, a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO of a company called StayFi. And we work with, over 50,000 vacation rental properties all around the world at this point. We started in 2018. The first product that we're most well known for is the Wi-Fi guest data collection, something I'm sure you've seen at a coffee shop, airport, hotel, where every guest, not just the booker, has to submit their name, email, phone number, other data to get onto the Wi-Fi, and therefore you can collect a lot more emails from your guests. But now we've kept building on that initial product set, and now we offer email marketing in the platform, text marketing, other guest engagement tools. And like Conrad mentioned, we've seen literally tens of thousands of campaigns sent by our customers, and we've seen what works, what doesn't work. And overall, we've collected at this point over 4 million guest emails across all of the homes that we work with. So we have really good insight on what you guys should be doing to get started or how to implement some more advanced approaches when it comes to emails. We'll cover all of those here and excited to be joined by Conrad, who is not just an expert in email, but an expert in all sorts of digital marketing, from website to SEO to search to everything you can do to really become a strong independent brand.
Yeah, right on. I like that 4 million number, Arthur. That makes me, think of that's like the population of a small country, or like one out of every, four adults in the US has probably entered their email through StayFi or something silly like that. So
A
I like
little
that.
terrifying, but yes,
Hey, just think of how much bigger it's going to get as you get more customers
exactly.
and as more people use StayFi, it's going to get even better. Um, awesome. So we've got an agenda here just to kind of keep us on track. Obviously, we'll have some, free-flowing examples. Arthur's going to actually do, I think, a pretty engaging screen share in a little bit, talking up more about the product and giving some examples of new stuff that they're adding. And that is a comment, by the way, before we get started, which is that there's a few companies in this space that I've had the chance to work with that add features all the time. And I think that's always such a healthy sign. If you're working with a vendor, if you're considering signing up for a software vendor, look for companies like StayFi. Look for companies that are constantly adding new things, constantly adding new features. Maybe every feature doesn't apply to you, and that's okay. But if they're adding new features, they're in that development mode, they're in that build mode. They're not in that, let's do as little as possible mode, which unfortunately has infested a few of the software companies that, in our space, they just don't do anything anymore. Companies like StayFi, companies like OwnerRez, these are companies that are constantly putting out new stuff. And as a result, their product gets better and better and better. When I think of the first time we probably got connected to Arthur, it was probably back in probably pre-COVID, right? 2019, 2020, somewhere in that range. I think a customer had used StayFi and I was like, that's a great idea. Let me try to get more of my customers to use it. And when I look at where it was then in 2020, let's say, or 2019 to where it is today, you can see just a rapid, pace of innovation, new features are being added. So these are the kind of companies you want to work with for sure. If you're, a property manager listening in, you're trying to decide, is this worth it? Is it worth it, the time and the money investment? I think my answer is yes. And I recommend this product a lot for that reason. So, anyways, today's agenda, we're going to talk about the gold mine, the fact that yes, there's a lot of value in the emails that are on your list, or if you don't have a list, why building that list up is going to be like a gold mine that you can go in and hit with a pick and a shovel and get some actual bookings out of, which is a good thing. We're going to talk about examples of proven emails that you can send, ideas. If you're one of these people who's like, all right, you're convincing me, email sounds like a good idea, but I'm not doing it, what are some ideas that you could do that will actually get some good results? We're going to talk a little bit about automation. And Arthur's got some really interesting ideas on doing maybe a little demo of what automation could look like, doing things like last minute deals, specials, or even setting up just more basic automations when people check in, sending them a welcome email, those kind of things. Then we're going to talk about how to get more value from the list that you already have. So we're going to touch on things like upsells or just other opportunities to maybe, use StayFi or use other email marketing systems to do gap night sales or whatever kind of problem you're facing. We have a little, ideas on getting more juice from your list, getting more bookings, getting more revenue from the list that you have. We'll touch a little bit on metrics that matter. So all the, every marketing, channel has its own set of numbers and metrics that you want to keep an eye on. What we're going to talk about that kind of towards the tail end, open rates, click rates, that sort of thing. And then at the end, if there's questions or if we have additional time, I would love to do some live Q&A or, if you guys have any questions, we can maybe pop those in the chat here and folks can respond to, that and we'll get some additional feedback that way. So if you have a question, don't wait, no reason, go ahead and fire it away in the chat. And we can kind of collect that. And then at the end, we can put those all up into one place and reference those on the screen. So yeah, so good news. We got a bonus. So both Arthur was, and his team was kind enough to put together a special offer for those people that are here on the webinar today. I've also got a bonus that's kind of a unique thing that I've not done before. A swipe file from clients that we're working with, and many of whom are using StayFi. Some example emails that people could actually be sending. I'm going to give you like the full graphics, the full text, that in a Google Drive so you can take a peek at it. I've also got an offer in the book, and then Arthur and his team over at StayFi made you guys a really special offer that I think you'll want to check out. That'll save you a little bit as you get going. So we'll have it at the end, so stick around. But I just wanted to go through that before we get started. Arthur, anything before we dive into the value of the list that we should warn the folks about as we get going here today?
Oh, I just saw that one person asked if this is being
Yeah.
recorded, and the answer is yes. So make sure if you have questions, I would recommend use yeah. Someone mentioned that chat's disabled, so use the
Oh,
the
okay.
Q&A function of Zoom for if you're gonna
Yes.
add questions. Sorry about that.
No, all good. Yeah, I didn't realize chat was disabled. So let's blame it on my my baby mush brain that I have because of the sleep that I didn't get last night. So we'll blame it on that. But yes, it's being recorded. Absolutely. We'll send the recording after if you're joining in live and you missed something, no big deal. And yeah, just use the Q&A function or whatever and we'll get those pieces in there. So yeah, sorry, the chat was disabled. That was unintentional. Um, all right, all good. All right, so the gold mine, why emails are so valuable. So I wanted to think about this a little bit, and now these numbers are going to be different for every single person listening, right? If you have a small one-bedroom condo, it's not the same as if you have a luxury, high-end $3,000 per night property somewhere in the Bahamas, right? But generally speaking, I went and looked at probably a half dozen examples of clients that we have using StayFi, and also using, our email marketing approach, our email marketing system, and the value per email subscriber seems to be kind of be in this $1 to $3 range. Which when you think about it, it's kind of like if you could put something in your business that's only going to cost you a few dollars a month. And every single time a guest checks in that property, you're going to be getting, emails that are worth for you in terms of gross bookings over the next year or so, $1 to $3 each. That's a pretty good trade of money. That's a pretty good trade of time as well. So I think some people, they try to overcomplicate maybe the metrics around email. If you just think of it this way, every single person you're adding to your list is probably going to give you $1 in terms of gross bookings or direct bookings in the next 12 months. You'd probably want to add as many people as you could to your list as long as they were relevant. And I think one thing I often tell people when they're getting started with StayFi is you want to put your StayFi units, if you can do them in some kind of phased approach, as many of our clients do, put them in the largest, most occupied properties first, but you're going to get the most value out of the bigger properties that have a lot of guests staying in them. Into the 1, 2 bedroom properties, you're going to get some value, absolutely, particularly if you get a lot of OTA bookings. But where you can really see the needle move is if you put it into larger properties. So if there's anyone listening that has these larger units, these 4, 5, 6 bedroom units or bigger in their program, you're going to see the most value, I think, in getting those people to sign up for, your email list, because you're then getting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 emails from every single guest that's coming in. So imagine every single time it's like you're getting 10, 20, $30 of future potential booking value from every single email that's popping on that list. And if you have 7, 8 bookings happening in that property every month, you can see how that's really going to stack up and add a lot of value. So, you might want to calculate this for, on your own metrics with your own data once you've been doing email marketing for a while. But just think of it as every email on your list is going to have some value once you average it over a 6 month period or a 12 month period or something like that. And the value of those emails can be quite high if you have larger properties or if you have higher occupancy properties. So just something to think about as you kind of consider the value of it. Just some typical metrics that we see, the value of how many people do I need on a list for me to start to get bookings consistently. I've kind of noticed this to be a pretty reasonable estimate. So if you have 500 people on your list, you're likely to get at least one booking for every email you send. And obviously that will typically scale. So if you have, 1,000 people on a list, you probably get 2 bookings. If you have 5,000 people on a list, you probably might get up to 10 bookings every time you send an email. Now, could you send too much? Can you do a little bit too much? Yes. And we'll talk about that in a minute when we talk about things like open rates and unsubscribe rates and spam rates. So it's not a linear graph. You can't just send an email every day and get a booking every single day. That list will get, a little bit exhausted. But generally speaking, if you're sending on a reasonable cadence, this seems to be numbers that we've seen across our client database as far as the quantity of the emails that you're sending, the size of that list, and how many bookings you're actually getting out of it. Arthur, do you have any data or anything else that you've kind of pulled down or reviewed on the StayFi side of things on these numbers, or what's your perspective there?
Yeah, I mean, 500 is the number where we really recommend people start sending that monthly newsletter. It's kind of like this is going to be more than worth your time to send something at least once a month, if not more. Yes, we definitely recommend something. And then it comes to large homes, we see properties in that larger range, collect anywhere between 2 to 5,000 emails a year. So there's just incredible amount of value to be harvested there. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible to think about because we have clients that have been in business for 10 years and they haven't taken email collection seriously and they don't even have 5,000 people on a list. So maybe they've been renting properties, on platform sites. They've been focusing more on the OTA side of things. So they're not really getting many email addresses. It's all fake hash emails that they're getting from Airbnb. So for them to realize that in 1 year, they could put, StayFi on a large property and get their whole entire email list, basically what they have today, I think is a powerful concept, is a powerful, metric. So, for example, over the course of a calendar year, we have clients with email list sizes around 10,000 who are driving every single calendar year $20,000 or more in gross booking rental revenue. And that's an average. So we have some clients that are certainly doing a lot more than that. We have a client who's a StayFi customer whose average booking value is like almost $30,000, a week-long stay. He's hosting in the Bahamas. So for him, he gets one booking a year and it pays for StayFi for the next 5 years and a lot of other things. So that's an extreme example. But generally speaking, if you're looking at typical conversion rates, typical click rates, it's reasonable to assume that if you have a list of this size, you're probably going to be picking up, let's say, $21,000 bookings or something like that over the course of a calendar year by sending emails. And that's really with doing a very simple, straightforward approach. We're talking about monthly sends. We're not talking about anything beyond that. We're talking about very straightforward automations that we'll talk about in a few minutes. So really this stuff isn't rocket science. It's not super complicated, but it does scale. As you get more emails, as you leverage StayFi or a system like StayFi to get more emails, your effectiveness is going to get better. I feel like that's an told story in email marketing, which is that it's one of the only channels that you have. Like, for example, we run a lot of paid ads for our clients, paid ads on Google. And the more traffic we want to get from Google, the more we have to pay Google. So if we want to double our traffic with Google, we probably have to double our budget. With email, it's one of the few channels where you actually can spend almost less, per subscriber over time, because your cost may increase a little bit. If your list goes from 10,000 people to 20,000 people, maybe you have to pay your email provider a little bit more. Your MailChimp, your StayFi email marketing backend system, you might have to pay a little bit more for that larger list. But the impact of that list goes up so much more than whatever, 10, 20, 30, $50 you're paying more to that to house those emails. And really the clients that see the most success with email over time are really consistent and they're growing that list. They're figuring out every possible way to do, additional list growth techniques, not just StayFi, but also things like contest giveaways. We could touch on that at the end as well, to make that list as big as possible and as relevant as possible. So I think that's a key point of it. Go
Oh,
ahead.
the only other thing I'll add there is that you have to remember not just to think about those bookings in terms of cannibalizing OTA bookings. We're really going to be able, some of those bookings are going to be net new bookings that you would not have gotten otherwise, right? So if you're filling in nights that otherwise would have gone unsold, if you're an owner, obviously that accrues all to your benefit. But then if you're a property manager, you're going to be outperforming your competitors because you're going to be delivering a higher overall occupancy rate. And obviously your owners will be happy and you'll be happier as well. And that list also has a lot of value when it comes on the owner marketing side because you have that proprietary guest list that your competitors may not have, and that can be a great part of your marketing strategy when it comes to adding new co-hosts or new owners.
Yeah, I love that.
Um,
Awesome.
yeah, now switching over how to collect guest data. I actually saw someone already kind of hint at this question in the Q&A, which is there's a lot of places that you can capture guest data. How can I aggregate it all into one place? And that's something that our email tool does really well because we can tie into a bunch of different systems to harvest all the possible emails that you can collect out there in the world. So number one is your property management software will already have some data in it when it comes to emails. Some PMS are better than others at collecting this data. So, for instance, Conrad mentioned OwnerRes. They have a great feature where they will try and go and have the booker from Airbnb fill out a form to get that email, and then we can integrate that in. So, some PMS have some features that kind of help you uncover the booker's email if it is an OTA booking. Some do not. But there's definitely going to be some data in there, either from OTAs that share that data or from direct bookings. And we want to help integrate that data. So when you connect your property management software to StayFi, we go look through all of your historical reservations as well as any future reservations and pull in any relevant email that you have collected or will collect. Wi-Fi is definitely the bread and butter of our product, which is a way to get at non-booking guests and definitely the most efficient way to do that because on average we're going to collect 80+% of adults' emails during the course of the stay. So for instance, if you have a group of 10, I would expect 8 to 9 unique emails from that stay. And that's going to reach a lot more people who can potentially rebook your properties or refer your brand to other people. StayFi has a new feature we launched recently, which is kind of like that pre-arrival form that OwnerRes can do, for instance, but we let you do that through any PMS, where basically we'll send a form to the booker in advance, letting them provide their email and also share that with other of their guests in order to access kind of like the guidebook or homepage for that property. This is not as efficient as Wi-Fi, but for properties where you can't do Wi-Fi, or maybe you don't want to pay for our Wi-Fi service because I know it is more expensive than just using the email tool, it does give you that way to start collecting some emails where before you would have been collecting almost none. Fourth is website, which I know Conrad is big on. We have the ways to do this in StayFi email, but I know you have some thoughts on like what you should be offering on like a website pop-up in order to get that email.
Yeah, we've done a lot of testing on this angle on the website side of things. And it turns out, in most of our testing, what we found typically works the best for most brands is offering a small fixed dollar discount. So that number may change a little bit depending on your ADRs and your average booking values and those sorts of things. But a lot of our clients offer like a $50 or $100 fixed dollar discount. And it's interesting. The thing that always surprises me a little bit when I talk with clients about this, they're always kind of scratching their heads, but then we test it and it usually turns out to be the case. We find that a fixed dollar discount often outperforms a percentage discount, even when the percentage would have been a greater discount. So for example, a $50 promo code will often outpull, like in testing, as far as the number of signups you're getting, a 10% off coupon or a 10% off, discount code or something like that, even when 10% would have been $120, for example, discount on your average booking. So my sort of thesis on this is that guests know at this point that vacation rental rates are very dynamically priced. It's not, for them, 10%, they don't really know what that number is going to be. So there's this moment of uncertainty when someone sees that it's 10% off. There's no uncertainty with $50, right? $50 is $50 or $100 is $100. So I think in that moment of them seeing the pop-up on the website and them deciding that moment if they're going to actually enter their email and get that discount or not, the more tangible, clear nature of a fixed dollar discount, I think just more from a behavioral science standpoint is what tends to make that work well. That being said, feel free to test it for yourself. We have some clients where a fixed dollar discount will be tricky because they're very low ADR properties. So we can't do it and we have to do percentage discounts because it would be a little bit cheaper. Or we have clients who have very variable, unit units where they have very small stuff that's, one bedroom, tiny little units, and then they got stuff that's 10-bedroom houses. So for them, offering $100 off a 10-bedroom house doesn't really move the needle, and it's too much of a discount for a small one bedroom. So do your own testing, of course, with all things marketing. It's always, more like guidelines than actual rules, as the Pirates of the Caribbean saying goes. So use your best judgment there. But we've just found in our testing that sometimes a fixed dollar discount can outperform a percentage discount on that offer. I will say one thing that almost universally works the worst is a pop-up that says sign up for a newsletter, right? No one wants a newsletter. They want some benefit for giving away their information. So if you're going to do something, make sure it's a special bonus, it's an offer, it's a discount, something. Don't just say sign up for a newsletter if you can help it, because those tend to convert the worst in our testing.
And then last year, social media, I see a lot of brands that have really built up a fantastic Instagram following, for instance, use Instagram stories and content to help drive bookings and email collection. So, for instance, I follow some of our customer brands and they will say, hey, we have one weekend or one unit available this weekend, put your email in this form or just DM us back and we can, contact you. And then in that conversation, you're collecting their email. So I've just seen, obviously it's a little more micro scale and it's about filling those incremental nights. But if you've built up that social media following, that is a great way to start getting emails from those folks when they're actually interested in booking.
Yeah. Yeah, my feedback on that is, you're not going to get the email unless you ask for it, right? Whether it's in a
Yes.
form or in some kind of message, right? No one's just going to volunteer, hey, let me give my email to get more
Basically,
emails.
if you're advertising, hey, we have a last minute discount, someone
Yeah.
says they're interested, like, hey, send me your email and I'll send you the information, right? So you're getting it in that exchange.
Exactly, exactly. And there's some reason for doing so. Well, perfect. All right, Arthur, take us down Wi-Fi marketing. What's your thoughts here?
Yeah, so this is just what what Wi-Fi marketing is in a nutshell is with StayFi or other tools, or at least with StayFi especially, guests do this once per stay per device. So when the guest comes to your property, they join the guest network and then they get this captive splash page, example here on the right here, where we collect name, email, phone number, and opt-in consent. What's cool about this is we actually use a tool called Zero Bounds and we validate that emails are real at point of collection. And then you have a feature you can turn on or off, but I recommend you turn it on, where if someone enters a fake email, it will reject it and then ask them to enter a real one. So that way, 99+% of the emails we're collecting through here are not going to bounce or have any issues there, which is really important. Also, this is a great touch point to introduce your brand. If you have a lot of Airbnb guests, even if they're not Airbnb guests, people kind of say in common parlance that they're staying at an Airbnb or they booked an Airbnb. Especially the non-booking guests are probably just going to assume this is an Airbnb. And so it's going to take multiple touch points to educate guests that you're not just a generic Airbnb, that you are an independent brand that offers direct bookings, hopefully with some type of benefit, which we'll discuss later, which can be monetary or service or relationship wise, right? There's some benefit to building that direct relationship. And this is just one more touch point into the guest journey and non-booking guest journey, especially because this will probably be your first touch point with non-booking guests to introduce your brand and collect information. And Connor and I were discussing that some of the objections we hear around this are, hey, is this going to feel kind of low class, not luxury? And Conrad was mentioning that, he recently went to a Four Seasons and had to enter in his information on a splash page. So if the Four Seasons is willing to do it, they don't view it as reputationally harming. I think vacation rental managers should be fine. And we, rarely if ever hear any issues from guests that don't want to fill out this information, as they can always unsubscribe from your emails. So no one is being forced to subscribe to your email marketing forever, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's a boogeyman in memory, or like you think it's a bad thing that's happening and then you actually do it and then you realize, oh, nothing really bad ever happens. Like the worst thing that happens is someone gets the first email, they go to the bottom and they click unsubscribe. So obviously follow all the relevant laws, and if you use a system like StayFi's or other email marketing platforms like Mailchimp, they're going to follow all the relevant laws from an email marketing perspective to make sure if someone really doesn't want it, they can just unsubscribe, no big deal. Good reason to send that email right away, by the way. So if they don't want to get it in the future, they could just easily unsubscribe. But yeah, but again, by asking, you're going to get a lot more than by not asking. So I think this idea of, oh, people are going to feel differently about my brand. Oh, I don't want to add any friction to the process. I just think those concerns are honestly overblown. I've stayed in really, high end, and I've seen, clients in our, client base with really high end properties, 1,000, 2,000, $3,000 ADR night properties that have put StayFi in there. And I've never heard a peep about someone, saying anything negative or having any complaints about it. They just say, okay, they either want to do it or they don't. And then once they do it, they get the value from it. So I think that's the way to go for sure. Awesome.
Um,
Step by
yeah, and
step.
just what it looks like from a guest perspective, right? So they connect to the guest network. The splash page will load automatically. They enter their information. And then at StayFi, we have this product called Homepage, which is kind of like a link tree, if you've ever seen one of those, with all the essential links to resources, booking again, upsells, guidebooks, all that kind of stuff. And then, which I'll show in a second, all of our email and text marketing tools lets you automate a message sent to the guest right when they log into the Wi-Fi, which is where you can also link directly to the homepage for that property. And we do all of those merge fields and complicated things about linking to, for instance, the website of this property or the homepage of this property. All those dynamic links are done for you automatically. And those emails get, 60+% open rates right at the point of Wi-Fi collection. It's a really fantastic way to educate guests about your brand, introduce yourself, and then, of course, let them know about how to book future stays directly.
Yeah, yeah, couldn't agree more. I think the only other thing I'll add in there is that you want a guest being comfortable and being used to opening an email from you. Like, Arthur nailed it a few minutes ago. You want this idea out of their head that they booked an Airbnb. They didn't book an Airbnb. They booked a professionally managed, or whether you're a host or a hobby, a smaller host or a property manager, they booked a professionally managed unit, short-term rental unit, vacation rental unit with your company, and you want to start putting that in multiple places. I like the idea a lot. It's not really in the digital world, but I like the idea a lot. By the time they've already walked in the property, they've seen your branding, hopefully 2 or 3 times in the property itself. Maybe it's on the key fob that they have to open to get into the thing. Maybe there's a physical sign or some kind of brand touch point when they walk into the property. Hey, this home is managed by XYZ. There's a 8x10 card on the wall, something like that. And then when they get to the Wi-Fi, they see it again, right? So we're just hammering them, hitting them multiple touch points. And then by the time they get the email from you, they go, oh, okay, I've seen this now 4 times. This isn't some random company. This is, XYZ company that I'm working with at this point in time. So.
Yeah, and then this is just a preview of this other feature we launched, which is pre-arrival guest data collection. We have customers use this with the Wi-Fi. Some customers only use this in some properties or a mixture, so it's really up to you. Having this on is just going to collect the maximum number of emails you can possibly, whether you do it with Wi-Fi or not. Essentially, what we do is we send a message through your property management software some days in advance with this form here you can see in the middle. The guest or the booker in this case, because we're only sending into the booker, obviously through the property management software, will fill out their information, name, email, phone number, and that's in order to access the homepage. So that link tree type page I talked about before, where you'll have here your guidebook, website, book again, upsells, so purchase early check-in. I'll explain how that can work because I saw a question about that. And there's also a step in here to share the homepage with other guests. Obviously, this is going to collect less Wi-Fi. We find that it's 2 to 10% of guest data. So if you have 100 guests or 100 bookings, we're going to collect 2 to 10 emails from all those bookings. So definitely not if you have like 10 bookings of 10 guests, we're going to collect 2 to 10 emails. So definitely less than Wi-Fi, but a great place to get started, or a great place or a great way to do to collect emails for like 1-bedroom condos where you're going to only have an average of like 2 people, where the Wi-Fi may make less sense. This can help you get at that booker information.
Yeah, I like them. Yeah, it's another touch point. And again, now people are used to opening communication from you. So then when they get the door code, and maybe that's going to stem the early check-in, late checkout question. I noticed that was in there, Arthur, which is a revenue opportunity, obviously. But it's also something where it's like, great, now I don't answer that question. They already knew, they already got the information about my early check-in or late checkout policy or ability to offer that in some situations. So, yeah. All right, let's turn the page a bit over to proven emails to send that actually work. So, obviously, maybe Arthur, you could touch here first on how to actually build it in the StayFi platform, and then I have some examples that I can go through from clients that we're working with as well.
Yeah, I mean, at StayFi, we have a full service email marketing tool within StayFi, but what we've done is layered on top of it a bunch of pre-built automations and newsletters to send that are basically already designed for you, and we've already done all the hard parts of sending email. This is definitely a great place to get started. It's not going to be as fancy or nice as the emails that Conrad customizes for your specific brand, but it's kind of a great starting point where you can set up an email in 3 to 5 minutes. And on the left here is just an example of the Wi-Fi welcome automation, which you set up in StayFi through a one-click builder, where essentially we will just put together an email for you that gets sent automatically to every guest when they log into the Wi-Fi. And the email here, you can see kind of what the design looks like. It's really just welcoming them to your brand. And then we have these links in here to the homepage, guidebook, website. You can even have a link to book this property again, and we dynamically fill that in with the appropriate links for that specific property. And all the merge fields in here, will have the name of the property, the name of the guest for that stay. So we do all the hard work for you to just instantly send out one of these emails in a few seconds. And like Conrad mentioned, these type of email will get 60+% open rates, and you can really make sure that every guest staying with you is familiar with your brand.
Mhm. Yeah, love it. Yeah, the example on the right is a client that we're working with who also leverages StayFi, but they do have their emails in MailChimp, who's an API connected partner of StayFi. So, I'm assuming this is kind of your thought process as well, Arthur. You built a good system on your side of things, but if someone did want to use something like MailChimp, you guys connect that through the API so that data can feed in there seamlessly. So, that's kind of the way the one on the right that you're seeing has been built like you said, it's a little bit more custom from a design perspective. I would argue that from an impact perspective, they kind of work the same. It's just this particular example, this client has a very specific keen eye for design. So we did have to, design things in a very custom way to make sure it met their look and feel and how they wanted things to actually be laid out. So, obviously, depending on how particular or detailed your brand requirements are, you may have to go a little bit more custom on the design side. But both these systems are going to work well, whether you're using something like MailChimp or whether you're using the built-in StayFi tooling to send those emails out. I would argue this is actually richer from a data perspective, what you're seeing on the left side of the screen right now, because you can do those dynamic property name fields, things like that. That's a little bit harder to do with some of the API connected things, like another email system like MailChimp. But when we do a welcome series for a client, we're often thinking about, in many situations, that initial sign up on the website. So we talked about that idea earlier of, signing up at the website on a pop-up, for example, and then getting that, initial 3 to 5 email sequence flow. So I think welcome series kind of mean two different things in a way. It could mean someone first signing up for my list for the first time, they have not booked a property yet. Or of course, it could be what Arthur's describing quite well here too, which is that they're staying in the property right now. I also want to welcome them. It's just a different kind of welcome. It's more about the property. The one before they booked is more about why you should book with us. Here's our company. Here's some featured listings and so on and so forth. So that's kind of a more than one way to approach it in that way. Um, area feature. I think this matters quite a bit if you want to send this email out. Again, as part of your welcome series, if you have diverse geographic regions that you're covering, obviously this depends a lot on exactly, your property management company or your inventory that you have available to you. Some clients that we work with are in one small zone and they're really just talking more about the different listings they have within that small area. They're in one city, one town, one beach market, etc. Other clients we work with, like the example on the screen right now, work in a variety of locations. They work in a variety of locations all over an entire state, in this case, California. And so people visiting may not know. They may have, been going in and thinking, oh, I'm looking for property or a vacation rental or a stay in Joshua Tree. And then it turns out they also have things in other locations like Malibu, for example, or other towns or
Those
cities
homes
nearby.
might not exist anymore, sadly. So,
Yeah. And
yes.
that's a very complicating
Yeah.
factor here. But
Yes.
yeah, in this case, they've got stuff in Temecula, which is okay, and some other things like that as well. But yeah, design wise, you can have a lot more creativity with how you set up these area feature campaigns. But it's just a really safe one, I think, to send in this way if you're in different spots, if you're in different locations, a good way to send those things out as well.
And something I'll
Um,
just add
yeah, go ahead.
that Conrad, I think, mentioned, but I don't think he, just to make it very like explicit, right, is you want to have a welcome automation at each collection point, and the messaging should be different. So the one I was showing you was at the point of Wi-Fi collection. Conrad was showing you at the point of subscribing on the website. And obviously, the people who are subscribing on the website probably are either looking to book, or they might even be an owner looking to have you manage their properties, and the messaging there should be very different, right? So, and then if you collect data other ways, we can talk about this more when we actually look at StayFi. You're gonna, you might even want to do a different type of message if you're collecting from a different source.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, it's the analogy I've done before in this respect is imagine someone walked up to you in person and let's say you had a cabin, Arthur in upstate New York or something, and I said, okay, cool, tell me more about the cabin. I'm going to sign up for your list, and then you look at me and don't say anything. You're just like awkwardly staring at me. That's what a lot of people do. Like you'd be shocked how often when we're doing research for a client or a client fills out a contact form, sometimes I'll go on their website and I'll sign up and see what I get, and like more often than not, I'll say like 80% of the time I sign up for a newsletter on a vacational website and I get nothing. And nothing was confirmed. It's just like we got your list. And I'm sure I get put into the list on the back end, whatever the system they're using. But don't do that. Like if someone's looking at you and saying like, I'm interested in learning more about your business, I'm interested in booking with you, send them something right on the website. It doesn't have to be the most complex email that you know of all time. It's just like I've got you, I've acknowledged you. Here's some more information about us. Here's some more information on our properties. These are things that you can put together one time. And then most automations, honestly, you don't have to fiddle with them a lot. Once you have the automation set up, it's rare that you have to go back in there and completely rip things apart. I think Arthur touched on an unfortunate one there. We might have to go change a Malibu email because of fires, but that's a pretty rare scenario, right? For the most part, 95% of the time, what you said what you sent a year ago, excuse me, is pretty much the same thing you're going to send a year from now as far as that automation email goes. So your newsletters where you're constantly kind of shifting things in and out, new events, new activities, all that kind of stuff. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, generally speaking, a lot of this more static information kind of stays the same. So sure, it might be an investment for you to get it set up initially using StayFi or using another system. But once you have it set up, again, you're probably not going to be modifying or changing it too much. So, my belief from a marketing standpoint is that people are, yes, going to stay in the home, but the home or the property that you're hosting them in, it's just a tool to get them to what their actual experience is going to be like, right? Most people aren't coming to stay in the property and just sit there and, on the couch and do nothing. They're there to have experiences. They're there to go do activities. They're there to go to Fredericksburg, Texas and go wine tasting, right? So why not talk about that? That's what's motivating them to actually get there. If you can be their source of information, this gets more into like the branding side of things or kind of the, what does my company stand for from a values marketing perspective? Obviously, the more information you give them, the more affinity they're going to have for your brand. And email is naturally a great way to introduce people to what the value is that you offer on your website and what people can learn more about. So here's an example StayFi customer case study on the StayFi website. So I felt safe picking this one, Arthur, to pop in here. Someone that we're working with, this is what their things to do or area information email looks like. And it's, as you can see, we're not actually selling a booking here. They already booked at this point, right? They're getting this email. They've already booked. It's more about here's all the places to go fishing. Here's the romantic spots to go get dinner. Here's the wine tasting nearby, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's just pure value add. And at the very bottom, hey, if you have a question, here's our phone number. Go to our website. We can help you that way. But emails like this are not actually trying to get bookings. They're just trying to add value to the person going in there. Just touching on this concept, obviously, this is the safest one, right? This is the every month. There was actually a question earlier from Ava. I'll answer it right now. What would you consider a reasonable cadence? I would say the majority of our clients are sending one monthly newsletter to the whole list, and then that's on top of the automations that we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. But we have a lot of clients just doing one email out to their whole list every month, and they're getting good results from that. Now, I would say it depends on your metrics. We'll talk about metrics in a few minutes too. If you're getting a high amount of unsubscribes, obviously it'll probably tell you you're being a little bit too aggressive or the emails aren't good enough. But we have clients that are kind of more in that 2 per month range, and that seems to be about the right one. I would have a really hard time going to weekly. I know there's large property managers out there that send weekly. I know because I've signed up for the list to kind of do some research and see what other folks are doing. And that's quite a common approach that a lot of people have. But I would say, generally speaking, it's really hard to do weekly unless you have something to say every week, unless you actually have something new or some reason to reach out every week. But I'm assuming, Arthur, you see a lot of this data. Do you see most people sending monthly? Do you see more bi-monthlies? What's your thoughts there?
I say monthly is typical. I like you. There's definitely some larger property managers at like the 300 plus home that send weekly or every other week. And just for them, each email is probably generating so much revenue. They're like, there's pressure
Hard
to
to
do
turn it
that.
off.
And yes. I'd say the other thing is you think about, we'll talk more about this with the metrics, right? Is you are going to get some bookings from people clicking through emails. But, in my opinion, a lot of people are going to come to your website directly or Google you. And the reason they remember your brand is because your email was there every month, because it is kind of having that billboard effect. Because for most travelers, when they're actually in market to book a stay, it's pretty infrequent, right? When they're actually looking to book, let's say, to go back to this beach destination, it may only be one time a year that they're actually planning that trip. Success is just making sure that they remember your brand, whether it's clicking through the email or not, to check your website because they're probably also going to check OTAs, right? That's a reasonable assumption. And so that's really why it's just really important to maintain that brand awareness consistently, just so that when someone is ready to book, they know at least to go check your website to see what availability you have, whether the pricing is better or they get some other benefit is what's really going to help close the deal at the end of the day.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think some people are often too, dogmatic about removing inactive subscribers. I know we have something on that in a minute, but I'll touch on it now, which is this idea of like, oh, they haven't opened an email in a little while, let me get rid of them, or they haven't clicked on an email in a little while, let me get rid of them. I'm a little more hesitant to do that, because especially with a larger home, especially with a longer booking cycle. I'll give you an example. We worked with a client for a long time in Hawaii, one of the few property managers in Hawaii that had inventory on every major island. People who come from the East Coast of the US to Hawaii, that is almost a bucket list type trip. You're not going to go to Hawaii every weekend, obviously, or even every year if you live on the East Coast of the US. If you're in South Carolina or if you're in New York, that's obviously not what you're going to be doing for the most part. Maybe there's someone out there who loves Hawaii and will go there all the time, but that's pretty much not the norm. That being said, though, when people book these trips, these are often bucket list trips with very high transaction values. So if we segmented our list when I was working with that property manager and we looked at the open rates of folks on the East Coast or people that have booked before, we go, yeah, they open like 10, 15% 50% of the time, they're really not super engaged. But when we get a booking, oh my goodness, it's a 2 or 3 week booking at a high-end home, and it can be a 15, 20, $30,000 booking. So the open rate was pretty low. The click-through rate was pretty low, honestly, too. But the value of those conversions when they came through from someone in New York booking a stay in Maui could be easily a month-long stay, and the conversion value was very high. So we let people on the list because we said, at the end of the day, the infrastructure is not costing us much. We're paying MailChimp maybe another $20 a month to have these people on the list. And we just need one. We just need one booking for this to be worth it, for that to kind of have some value there. I think the larger your property, the more infrequent a stay is like required or, common in your area, the more you might want to think about that. But I think people have too aggressive of a trigger finger, generally speaking, of removing people from the list just because they haven't booked or opened in a short time frame. I'll give you another example. My wife and I, we went to St. Thomas when our oldest was born. That was 2017 when we went to St. Thomas with him. I would love to go back to St. Thomas. I've been on this property manager's email list the whole time. I've got those emails multiple times. Hasn't happened yet, but I'm glad they haven't taken me off the list. I still want to go to St. Thomas. We just haven't, made that connection to go back there quite yet. And that is someone that I absolutely would stay with again if we went back to St. Thomas, for another family vacation. So just something to think
And you
about.
might refer them to
Yeah.
somebody else, right? So you can
Yeah.
don't assume that just because someone's on your list, they're not letting someone else know about you, even if they're not booking themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Tyann Marsing told me a story a while ago about someone who was on their list for 10 years between bookings. That it was like an 80th birthday, and then they came back again on their grandma's 90th birthday, and they had two family stays over a 10-year period. So that's a pretty extreme example. Obviously, that's not super common, but proves the point that someone could be on your list for a long time, not really be engaging with everything, but be aware. And then when that moment comes of them actually making the booking, there you are ready to go, ready to take on that booking and go from there. Arthur, I'll kick it back your way. This is last minute. Do you want to do demo now or demo after this one? What's your?
Yeah, so I'll just explain,
Mhm.
a lot of people ask us, you know, what are the types of content that perform really well? And one area we've seen a lot of people have success with email is doing last minute availability, or they have a cancellation and they want to go and try to get a rebooking. And obviously the best place to go do that is from your list, especially if you are in any semblance of a drive-to market. Obviously something like Hawaii or St. Thomas is more challenging because people typically can't just go drop everything and travel there. But for weekend stays or drive-to markets, last minute availability performs really well. So we actually built a special email builder just around this concept. So I will share my screen.
Absolutely. Let me give it your way. There you go.
Yep. And this is the StayFi email marketing tool. And like Conrad mentioned, um, this tool is a standalone tool within StayFi. So we kind of have two main products, right? The Wi-Fi data collection and the email marketing tool. Obviously, they work really well together, but they also can be sold separately. So you can use the Wi-Fi collection and send it to MailChimp, which is what some of Conrad's clients are doing that he showed you. But then you can also use the email tool and collect data other ways. So in StayFi, like the primary ways we collect data is through the Wi-Fi, which you have here. OwnerRes is our sample PMS here, but we're syncing in data from there. We also have that pre-arrival tool I mentioned. And then, of course, you can also upload a CSV. In the subscriber tab, that's how you set up forms on websites. So that is also possible through here. Then we have one-click automations to do Wi-Fi welcome, post-departure, and stay anniversary stays, which is the default is 10 months, but you can adjust that window. But now I'll show you kind of how this upcoming availability email works when you use our one-click builder. Essentially, here we have the email on the right that we're building. On the left is where we customize all these sections, which you can like unclick or re-click here. But down below here, I want to do 4 featured listings. And I want to go find listings in a date range. Let's just do this weekend in February. Basically what we're going to
You
do
did
is we're
a
going to go
you may have done
look.
that intentionally, Arthur. You did a pretty wide date range though. You went
Oh,
February
I did not
21st to
see.
March
Yes,
24th. Yeah, that's okay.
yes, I see that now.
There we go.
There we go. Yep. So we're going to go now look in this case, OwnerRes, but really any PMS that we work with. And we're going to go find all the properties that are available in this date range that have a minimum number of 2 nights.
So this is going out and kind of doing that real-time availability search. So that way, at the time you send this email, you're going to get a lot of data in there. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll show you the properties that you then select the 4 that I want to include. Here we just have 4 because it's a demo. It
Mhm.
brings in the dates and the price. And then when I hit continue with these 4 properties, what it's actually going to do is going to insert these
Mm.
properties into your email. It's going to show you the availability dates, the nightly rate, information about those properties, pull in an image. And then of course you can go in here and like edit because we're just going to pull the first image from owner but you can go in and change those obviously here, change any of the things. And then we should also be pulling in the links to then book these properties. But of course you confirm these are correct. And this way, if you do a last minute campaign, we're kind of pulling in all that information that before you would have to be toggling, going back and forth from owner and pulling photos and doing all that fun, tedious work. And we'll just go ahead and do that for you. And this is just a fantastic way to get people to book. The other way I see people use this is kind of like the inverse, which is let's say you want to advertise very high demand portions of the year that you just open up. So let's say like your homes are always booked for New Year's, but you want to go and try to get those all as direct bookings. What you can send out an email is, hey, we just opened New Year's and these are the homes that are available, and then we'll insert those in those dates. So like these are our last remaining inventory for New Year. So book now if you want to come back at this high demand time. So there's lots of creative ways that you can use this feature to go look in date ranges that are either upcoming or maybe even far out in the future and pull that information dynamically into the email, which then you just send. Um, yeah, so in the main section here, you can see these are all our one-click builders. And then, of course, you can also go in and create templates that are much more customized in here as well. But this is really going to make it a lot easier to start sending these automations and newsletters on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. I mean, what you just showed is something that we do quite a bit of manually, but it takes so much more time to be honest with you, right? Like what Arthur's just describing is something that like Don or John on my team will spend 20, 30 minutes just going through doing the date searches, grabbing the properties, putting the pictures in there, putting that in there. So the fact that you can basically go in StayFi, click a few buttons and have something that would take us an hour or two to do more manually is such a huge plus or value add if that works for your business. That's awesome. Like that's I think that's the promise of technology, Arthur, that I think isn't always realized when we look at some of this stuff is like supposed to save you time, supposed to make you money. That's a perfect example right there. That's going to save you time if you do an email like that, and it's going to make you money when you send it out to a target audience. So
And
I love
those
that.
last minute availability, they can have crazy high engagement, 40,
Mhm.
50%. I see people do it also for events, right? So we saw a lot of people do this for the eclipse, which we had, I think, last
Oh
year.
yeah.
These are the last properties available for the eclipse. Or you have here in New Orleans, I guess it's like the Super Bowl, whatever. Things like these are the last three properties
Are you not a
there.
football fan, Arthur?
Can't say that I watch too much football, but I hear that's coming up. So
Yeah.
kind of the local events, things that are in high demand in your area. So I see it both ways, both advertising availability for those high demand events where you're going to sell out, and then also how can you push things that aren't selling on OTAs, or you don't want to go into your pricing tool and lower rates as those dates approach. Like let's try to get them sold direct before you go ahead and go and do that.
Mhm. Quick question that came in the chat. Maybe you know the answer to this one right away before we give some other examples. The email you just gave, the example was about driving distance or like someone within driving distance. Within StayFi, could you collect data on like addresses, like zip codes or anything, and then do a segment of just those people that are nearby? What's your thoughts on that?
That one's a little, so you would have to do like area code if you collect phone
Mhm.
number would be the
Like zip
best
code.
proxy that
Okay.
we have. And in StateFi, you can segment your guest list by whatever variable you want. Also, if it's data that we collected from the property management software, we might have more information about that. So it just depends. But yeah, so basically like any variable that we have is segmentable within the tool. I would say that's typically like in a more advanced strategy. At the beginning, if you have 1,000 people on your list, I really would not worry about segmentation that much because there's not that much juice to squeeze. And if somebody who can't drive for this last minute availability, it's not a big deal that you sent them the email, right? So I always say like do the basics in terms of set up the automations, do the monthly email. Then as your list grows, that's where layering in more advanced things like segmentation comes in, targeting, different properties to different guests based on where they stayed in the past. Like all of that stuff is possible, but really nail down the basics first.
Okay, I like that. One more question too. The demo was with OwnerRes, but to be clear, Arthur, does it connect with other PMSs or like is that just working with OwnerRes at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you're putting me on the spot. We are rolling it out for all PMS. I think we've done almost all of them by now, all of the ones
Okay,
we integrate with, which is like 20. Um, but if it's not available for your PMS, it will be very soon.
right on.
But I know for all of like the guesty, owner res, hospitable, host away, hostfully, all the really like we basically prioritized it by how many connections we had. So all the big ones we've done already.
Yeah, yeah. There's two questions that came in about the fact that, maybe there was one question that came in about, does it auto add emails or do I need to export? I think you just need to connect it. Once you connect it, you should be good to go. And
Once you connect the PMS, we ask you how far back in time you want to go, and you can do
yep.
all time, 1 year, 2 years, and then it will add new emails as those reservations are done, pretty much live. So, and then
Wow.
we also, again, more advanced segmentation. All the guests that we pull in from your software, we also show their last booking and next booking dates, and those will like change dynamically as those dates pass. So for instance, if you're sending out a promo code, you can exclude everyone with a future booking from an email so they don't come or and turn around and be like, hey, can I add this promo code to my existing booking? So again, all sorts of, all the data is there to do as much crazy segmentation as you want. And then I think a lot like invest in really going into that is really where you hire someone like Conrad or, slowly kind of increase your own email competency as time goes on by layering in that more advanced segmentation.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of people do, they get really into this idea of doing a lot of segmentation before they've done the basics. So I like your idea a
Exactly.
lot of like crawl, then walk, then run.
Yeah.
And the people that really need segmentation are like multi-market massive lists, right? I've got 100,000 people on a list. All right, maybe I want to segment it, particularly if I'm in Miami and I'm in, Charleston, South Carolina, right? Then I might want to do more segmentation. But I think most people do overthink segmentation. I'm with you on that when their list is relatively small. And when I say relatively small, I'm thinking like a few thousand or less. That still is relatively small in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, I'm with you there 100%. So a smattering of other ideas. Obviously, Arthur gave some examples there. Post-date emails. I think that's always worth talking about. The booking anniversary email. I really like that Arthur had up on the screen a moment ago. But you could do a series. It could be 30 days post-day, 60 days post-day, 90 days, 120. It depends heavily on your destination and your trends. We have clients, for example, who frequently get these rebookings emails. You can send the day of checkout and they get people who will book for the following calendar year. So someone's checking out on June 27th and they're coming back and they're going, man, I really want to come and spend, another week in this beach house next year with my family. They'll actually book on that day for the next year for 2026. So obviously that depends on your market. If that's a common behavior trait, that's definitely worth doing, I think, through email and also potentially through all their touch points, an SMS, a phone call, that sort of thing. Some of those things may go more into the PMS layer and less into the StayFi layer. But I think adding it into StayFi, saying like, hey, do you want to rebook for next year? Let us know. We can help you in that way. Arthur did a good demo there in limited time urgency emails. Urgency always spurs action. That's just a marketingism that you can bring to the bank, right? If you say it has to be booked by this day, I'm only offering this special till this day, and then you cut it off on that day, you're training your guests that when they see something, they got to take action on it. I think that's a valuable thing.
Why every
Collecting,
OTA has that thing that's like
yeah.
20 people are looking at this hotel right now, and it's like completely a myth and a lie, but it's like trying to scare you into grabbing to booking right now, right?
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on dark patterns that there's a ethical way to yield that power or that marketing sort of heuristic, and there's certainly an evil way to wield that power, and of course we encourage people to be ethical and wield it the right way. But yeah, I think there's something there. And then Arthur and I were talking about this before we record email only early access. So we have a client quite large, but who's sending special offers out to their email list before they actually are visible on the direct booking website. So it's kind of a hidden page that goes to the email list first. They get first crack at special offers, and they're kind of trained like, oh, if I open the emails, I might see something that if I book it right away, other people won't be able to get it. So, for example, the 4th of July, dates are open to the email list before they're open to the general public on an OTA or even on the direct booking website. So do with that what you will. And then again, birthday emails, anniversary emails, just fun things you could collect. If you know someone was there for their anniversary, why not try to put them in an anniversary sequence, a romantic sequence? Maybe someone's staying in a week and a half here after this recording for Valentine's Day. Pop them into something that's more on that idea. Hey, do you want to book again for next Valentine's Day? With you and your partner or something like that. So
The one other idea I would add is if you're on the smaller side, maybe you operate just one property or the owner of one property. Don't shy away from text-only emails written
mhm.
from your like first person voice. Um, because you can just, create a plain text email in our tool or a MailChimp where you write, let's say it's a post departure. You use our post departure automation, but instead of having the templated email, you send a text email that's like, hey, first name, this is so and so. I manage the XYZ home. I'd love that you stay here. I hope everything went well. Give me feedback. Email me back if you want to, come back again. Um, because that's probably more authentic to who you are if you're just operating one home and you're writing it as if you just spontaneously wrote them an email through Gmail, right? And that's going to get a ton of engagement and potentially even people writing you back, letting you know that you want to book. So, if you don't really have a fully developed brand yet, maybe you don't even have a logo, right? You can still write first person emails to get that engagement for future rebookings.
Yeah, yeah. We have a client that we work with who actually gets better open rates from more plain text emails versus the more designed, quote unquote, pretty emails that we do. Yeah,
Because the
it's fun.
plain text typically go in the main Gmail inbox, but if
Mhm.
they have like that promotions folder, often anything with images can get kicked over to promotions. So the plain text emails are typically get those higher open rates.
Yeah, that's been our experience. Also, I think in this particular case, this also matters a little bit. If you're getting a lot of OTA bookings, how do you present yourself on Airbnb? If you present yourself on Airbnb like, I'm Conrad, I'm your host, I'm going to help you with your stay here in North Myrtle Beach, then I think the plain text email kind of matches that same throughput idea of like, I've got a few homes, I'm helping, you on your awesome vacation here. It's me and my wife and our family, we're hosting you, that sort of thing. That's a different vibe than, again, it's luxury vacation rental company, like the example in the demo Arthur did a minute ago, and you're not dealing with a name, you're dealing with more of a person. But if you present that way on Airbnb or a Vrbo, and then they get that email later because you got it through StayFi, that like logical line would follow more clearly, in my opinion. But if it's you're booking with Conrad, and then all of a sudden I get there and now it's called Conrad's Cool Cabins or something, there could be a little bit of a disconnect there potentially. So obviously it's a branding presentation discussion. It matters a little bit how you want to approach it, but I think you bring up a good point there. I like that. Awesome. Well, Arthur, you said we might not have enough content, and here we are with 5 minutes left, not being able to get through a lot of stuff. So maybe I can run through some of these things quickly, and we can button up a few questions before we kind of put a bow on this one. I love post-date emails. Here's an example from Cozy. You could actually, if you want to get really fancy with it, you can gate these stars. So depending on what star they click on, you could actually have them go to a different page or form on the website. We have a client, for example, if you click 1, 2, or 3 star, you go to an internal feedback form. Hey, I didn't seem to meet your expectations. How can I help you? How can I make it right? If you click 4 or 5 stars, you go to Google or you go to a public review place where they can leave that feedback more publicly. So you can kind of have some fun with that. But yeah, post a email. Why not? Everyone asks for a review. I think some of these emails though are very bad looking. They just don't look good. That the message is not compelling. I like the idea a lot of leave us a review. Thank you for staying. And then a follow up that's more manual on top of that. So that's not much as a StayFi thing. That's just more of a many people don't leave reviews unless they have a reason to do so. A more personal touch can go a long way there, or making it look like more of a personal touch. Back to Arthur's example from a minute ago. Pre-arrival upsell, we touched on that earlier. I don't know if there's much more to add, but certainly offering early check-in, offering late checkout if you can do it, offering a mid-stay clean, offering amenities, offering upsells. There's so much revenue that you can have, and pretty much everyone's business could do more what Adam on my team calls NRR, non-rental revenue. And that's kind of, I think, a key thing to focus on as we think about the fact that maybe your bookings are down a little bit, maybe your ADR is down a little bit, but if you can get more revenue from someone once they're coming into the stay in that property and give them real value, stuff that they want to pay for, stuff they're happy to pay for, then you can kind of stem the tide a little bit, maybe a little bit slower year if your market happens to be that way, and get more reservations that way. Anything else to touch on post departure before we do a
Yeah,
few
so this is,
questions?
like you saw when I opened StayFi earlier, we have this post-departure automation that's already set up for you, so you can quickly set this up and then offer incentive to come back and show other properties. I actually love that review thing. We haven't done that before with the
Mhm.
actually have that through our text marketing tool where you can, if you rate 5 stars, go to Google, and then if you rate less, we do private feedback.
Mhm.
But I love the 5 star image and putting it there. I would only send 5 stars to Google in my opinion, but that's just me. So
Honestly, that might be a good way of doing it. I'm with you on
yes,
that. So I
yeah,
might go there. Well,
uh,
awesome, Arthur. I know we got a few minutes and we got to wrap here on we want to be respectful of everyone's time. We know everyone attending is super busy. You guys have hosts and guests and everything to deal with. So I just want to thank Arthur for hopping on here. And, a lot of people are attending for the first time, coming in to check out everything we're doing at BuildUp. We super appreciate that. Obviously, we want you to be using StayFi. So that's number one. Number two would be if you need help with your email marketing, you want us to take everything that we talked about today and do it for you. That's something we do at BuildUp Booking. So we'll send an offer or an email out to folks, when they're done about how we could potentially work together. If not, we hope to give some value either way. But Arthur and his team was kind enough to offer an extra discount to folks. So maybe Arthur will walk through how this would work and how someone would get this 200 contact offer.
yeah, so if you go to stayfi.com, you just hit sign up for an account. When you sign up for an account, you pick, do you want Wi-Fi? Do you want our email tool or do you want both? So you can pick like which products you want to sign up for. Use code BUILDUP and you will get 50% off the first 3 months of both the Wi-Fi and the email tool if you want to use both of them. And then what's cool about our email tool is that once you connect to PMS, so like OwnerRez for instance, it's free up to 200 contacts. So you can connect OwnerRez or Hostaway or whatever you're using. Let's say we import 150 emails. You can go ahead and send a newsletter, contact those folks. It's totally free. And then once you cross over 200, you enter into one of our paid tiers. I saw someone asked about pricing. If you go to stayfi.com/pricing, all our pricing is public. There is no contracts, annual commitments. You can have one property, you can have 10,000 properties, right? It's totally up to you. And there's also a demo page on StayFi where you can watch a video of how everything works, as well as book a demo with one of our team members. So if you want to get questions answered before you go ahead and sign up, you can do that as well there.
Yeah, it's a great offer, Arthur. So thank you for popping it in here. That way people can check it out. They're going to save a few bucks, and they can get going for a very low cost. And the moment you get your first direct booking, you probably pay for Stay5 for the whole year, if not more than that. Is kind of my take on it as that go through. So I had one more thing which I'm able to offer to folks. If you'd like a copy of my book, if you're based in the U.S., I'm happy to send you a physical copy. If you're somewhere internationally, I can send you kind of the PDF version, or if you just prefer the PDF version, that's fine. I'm also happy to give you a swipe file. So you saw examples on the screen throughout the presentation today of emails that we've actually sent for our clients. I have a whole Google Drive folder of them. Scan this QR code you see on the screen now, and I can send you an email that has a link to today's recording. If you give me your address, I'm happy to send you a physical copy of my book, Mastering Vacational Marketing. And number three, I'm happy to give you a swipe file of emails that we send. If you're kind of like stuck on ideas, stuck on copy, stuck on just like, how do I get this stuff going? I think the swipe file and the offer that Arthur shared a minute ago will really help you. So I know we didn't get to everything, Arthur, but that's okay. Maybe we'll come back and do a part two if people really dig it. The attendance was awesome. So thanks everybody for hopping on, spending some time with us here today. Thank Arthur for his time and his attention, putting together a special offer for everyone here attending today. We appreciate it. Arthur, have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll catch everybody in a future one, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, talk to you later, Conrad. Thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Arthur. Have a great day.